So far, there are no notes in Canvas. You have to write them down. I'm not providing them for you. I am never going to collect your notes, and I'm not going to look at your notes. Your notes are your notes. I put a lot of information up there. If you want to shorthand your notes and abbreviate and exclude certain things, you can. I will tell you when it's okay to take a picture. Don't just assume that it's okay to take a picture, because it's not. One of the skills that you have to get good at is actually taking notes, especially when you're going to college next year. Being able to write and listen and observe all at the same time is a skill that you guys are actually really good at, not necessarily in this context. You're good at listening to music, watching your phone, and also doing homework on your iPad at the same time. And you do that every day during the school year, right? This is the same kind of thing. You're using multiple senses at the same time, okay? As I said yesterday, and it's already started, I'm recording today. And so what will happen is, if for some reason you get behind, you get lost, you get confused about something, you miss part of the notes, I'm not going to stop just for you. There will be this video uploaded probably next hour, attached to your assignment, so you can go back to it whenever you want. And if there's a part where you have to skip a couple lines and you need to write yourself a note to go back and watch the video, then put that in your notes, and you can skip to that part and you can get it that way, okay? So, here we go. Let's talk about what statistics is. We're going to use the book's definition. Since we're using the book, we might as well stay in line with what the book says. Okay? Bless you. So it's a several part definition. Here's the first part. It is the science of conducting studies to collect, to organize, summarize, analyze, and draw conclusions from data. Key thing here, and I talked about this yesterday, that graph that we looked at, they were trying to get you to draw a conclusion based on the way they represented the data, okay? But this is the key thing for statistics. Statistics for statistics' sake, just a bunch of numbers to kind of stare at, whatever. The whole idea is, how can we use that information in a productive way? Whether it's drawing a conclusion, making a decision on how to proceed next based off the data. Okay, one of the phrases, anybody in here want to become a teacher when they grow up? Nobody? Really? Huh, okay. One of the things, a phrase that you hear in education a lot is data-driven decision making. In other words, what we teach in our schools should be decided based off of what the data says we should do, instead of just some random person deciding what it should be. Okay? So that's the definition of statistics. Any questions about that? And this is what we're going to operate on this semester. Okay? Now let's get into vocabulary. There's a lot of it. And it's all about setting us up and putting ourselves on the same page as we move forward. So the first definition is variable, which you already know what a variable is, right? What's a variable? What? Something that varies. That is correct. What do we associate variables with typically, not in a statistics class? Yeah, Bridget. Independent, dependent variables, sure. When you think of a variable, what do you think of right away? X, a letter, right? And X can stand for different numbers at different times depending on the circumstances. That's the same idea, okay? It's a characteristic or attribute that can assume different variables, or values, can assume different values. So we often equate, in algebra, we talk about X as a variable, Y as a variable, and it assumes different values. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's a negative, sometimes it's a fraction. It can change. It's never the same. Okay. In statistics, we talk about variables too. Variables that will impact or influence the study that we're looking at. And I think we'll have time today to look at an example and decide what the variables might be in a situation so we can kind of work that together. All right, next we have data or data. I don't care which way you say it. Both are equally acceptable. In fact, I don't know that I've actually decided which way I say it. I think sometimes I say data. I think sometimes I say data, and I can't tell you why or when. So just don't get too hung up about it. Okay? Those are the values, the measurements or observations that the variables can assume. And when we say assume, we say those variables take the value of. Not making an assumption. That's not that kind of assume. It's like when someone steals your identity, they assume your identity. They take the value of it. Same idea. The variables assume those values. Most of the time, data is going to look like a big table or a bunch of, or an array of different numbers. Okay, when we're talking about numerical data. I think I mostly say data. I don't know. Okay. Next one is random variables. Come on. So the next one is random variables. Okay, random variables, simply stated, they happen by chance. Variables whose values are determined by chance, not by strategy, not by reason, it's just by chance. It's important that we all kind of get off on the same page so that when we're using some of these terms, we all know what we're talking about. Okay? And when the book uses these terms, you know what they're talking about. Okay, so keep moving here. A data set. Pretty simple, right? You take the data and you put it together in one grouping. The collection of data values or data points. I'll use that phrase too. Sometimes call it data points. Okay. It depends on what the data is. If it's numbers, oftentimes we'll interchange the phrase points or values. Data points, data values. But what is a data value? Okay, a data value is each value in the data set. I know it seems strange to use this word that we just used in the previous definition in the next one and then interchange them. It's typically not what we do in English, but you'll find that our book is a little bit quirky. Here's a perfect example of that. Two main area statistics that we're going to study. And 1.1 focuses on these two different areas, and it's going to be important to distinguish between the two. We have descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. And they're a lot like what their name says. And I'm going to go through and give you some qualities of the descriptive statistics first, then the inferential ones, and we'll try to compare them a little bit, see what we come up with. So when you see this word, descriptive, you think of the word what? Description. What else? Describe. Okay? So descriptive statistics are going to be more about we have a set of data and they are describing something. Okay? When you see this word inferential, what word do you think of? Inference. What is an inference? A guess?
Like an educated guess.
Educated guess?
Guess based off of
guess based off of fact. This is more predictive, right? We're predicting something based off of some information that we have, where the idea of guessing comes into play. Here we go. Let's get into it a little bit. Descriptive statistics consists of the collection, organization, summarization, and presentation of data. So again, it's super descriptive, and it contains all of that information. Here we go, next. It's based on current data and facts. So what's happening in the present, that's really important. When you're trying to determine whether we're talking about descriptive statistics or inferential statistics, you have to decide the time period that the data is presented to you in. As we talked about a little bit already about inferential statistics, it's meant to be more predictive, which means in the future. So descriptive statistics are happening sort of now. I mean, not instantaneous sort of now, but in the present as a general idea. Okay? Make sure you got all that. Inferential statistics. Oops. Consists of generalizations from samples to populations. Now this is critical, important, most commonly used, and I'm going to talk about what samples and populations are. We'll get into that next. Without using the word general, bless you, somebody tell me what the word generalization means. Without using the word general. Yes.
Like assumptions?
Assumptions. There's some truth to that. Yeah.
Averages?
Averages? There might be a hint of that.
Broad.
Broad. It's getting warmer. What else? Stereotyping can sometimes be a generalization. Actually, stereotype can be a harmful generalization. How's that? I mean, sometimes they're accurate. Most of the time they're not. Most of the time they're based off of bias, and that's a social justice class, and we're not teaching that. Right? But that's not a bad way to describe it. Anything else? Okay, we'll get into that more as we move into this chapter. Okay? Let's talk about what the population is. All subjects being studied. So for example, if I was taking a survey of Bishop Verot students, the population would be every single Bishop Verot student. Next, sample is a group of subjects selected from a population. So if I was wanting to gain information from Bishop Verot High School students, and all I was going to do is ask this class, you would be a sample of the entire population of Bishop Verot High School. Okay? A portion of the entire population is a sample. We're going to get into what types of samples there are. This class would not be so representative of our school because of a couple reasons. What's one reason why this is not representative of our school? Mateo? Upperclassmen, right? There's one reason. So we would have excluded all the freshmen and sophomores. What's another reason? Yes? It's just math. Well, why is that exclusive? Doesn't every kid have to take math at our school? Yes. All right. But what about our math class? What's special about our math class? It's an honors class, right? So we would be excluding any kid that didn't take a math honors class. Is it a sample and a valid sample? Absolutely. Is it representative of our school entirely? Probably not. Okay? It involves estimation. And this is, we were talking about this before, guessing, predictions, projections. And estimation is involved. Because we have not because we're trying to decide what's going to happen and make a conclusion off of our data, we're going to have to do some estimation. And the only reason this next one doesn't line up is because it wouldn't fit on the screen. Okay, so it's not pushed over, indented, like the other one's not indented, or it just, I couldn't fit it all on the screen. It determines whether relationships exist. So again, go back to the original definition of statistics. We're trying to draw a conclusion. And one of the ways that we draw a conclusion is to decide if there's a relationship between the variables. Does one impact the other? Does one happen because of the other? Okay. Here we go. We talked about this already. Makes predictions. And lastly, uses probability chance of an event occurring. So the likelihood of something happening. That's what probability chance means. Probability is the likelihood that something is going to happen or not happen. So in this case, uses probability chance of an event occurring. Here's a good note-taking strategy. Let's say you look at that phrase, probability chance, and you're like, what? I'm not going to remember what that means. But as I've said, however many times now, I've said likelihood. Maybe you write the word, I know that's hard to read. Maybe you write the word in your notes of likelihood because that word is more user-friendly to you than probability chance. You don't have to, I'm not telling you have to. I'm saying that as you take notes, you have the power to change the notes or make the notes impact you in a different way that might be more useful to you and enhance your notes. Okay, so the next thing that I'm about to put on the screen is actually in 2 pages on your book, but I put it into 1 page. So when I put it on the screen, you are welcome to take a picture of it. If you want to refer to your book and go back and forth on the pages, because half of it's on, not half, quarter of it's on page 5 and then the rest of it's on page 6, you can use your book too and screenshot. It's up to you. I'm not going to tell you again how to do it, but if you want to take a picture, you can. And if you need to move, here's the other thing. Whenever I give you permission to take a picture, for example, if you're not in a good position to take a picture, you're welcome to get up and move. The only thing I ask is that you be respectful of the people around you, because sometimes what has happened in the past is people take advantage of that and they literally walk in front of a lot of other people who are trying to take pictures and stick their head in the way, and then nobody can take a picture. Okay? Question. Here is, starting on page 5 and page 6 from your book that I've neatly put together for you. Oops. Crop it however you wish and change the size and all the good stuff that you like to do to make it nice in your notes. Take some time to do that real quick. We won't get through all of this today because I want to give you some time to start on your homework. It'll be tight, it'll be close, but I like to go through examples with you so we're all kind of on the same page about what you're doing moving forward. Okay. One of the things I did mention yesterday that I want to emphasize is there's a lot of writing in statistics and a lot of reading. Obviously, there are more letters and words on the page right here than there are numerical symbols, and so that's something you need to get used to in this class. The other thing that I'm going to say one time, and I'm not going to say it again, I'm not going to put it in your directions, it's just we're going to understand this from this point forward. So everybody turn around and look at me as I say this. Your answers need to be in complete sentences. Is there anybody that doesn't understand what I just said? Okay. Thank you. Complete sentences all the time. So here we go. Would anybody like to read the first paragraph?
Using
conducted at Manatee Community College revealed that students who attended class 95 to 100% of the time usually received an A in the class. Students who attended class 80 to 90% of the time usually received a B or C in the class. Students who attended the class less than 80% of the time usually received a D or an F, or eventually withdrew from the class.
Very good, Ashton. Next paragraph. Tyrion.
Based on this information, attendance and grades are related. The more you attend class, the more likely it is you'll receive a higher grade. If you improve your attendance, your grades will probably improve. Many factors affect your grade in a course. One factor that you have to consider, you have considerable control over is attendance. You can increase your opportunities for learning by attending classes.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so here's a first kind of example. All right, there's lots of words that are embedded into this that I want you to pay attention to. Words like usually. Okay, that's telling you that more often than not, that's what happens. Does it tell you that it has to happen? Is it a guarantee that if you attend class 95 to 100% of the time,
No.
you're going to get an A?
No.
No, but it's common. It seems like there's a relationship there, but it's not a guarantee. Okay? So having a relationship doesn't necessarily mean it's an absolute. Okay? There's things in that will impact that. So, let's look at the questions. What's a variable? What's one variable that we're considering in this situation? Yes, ma'am. Attendance. Okay, I agree with that. Attendance. It can change, right? Because you can come every day, or you don't come every day. It depends. Josh, what's another one? Grades. Okay. Now, obviously, if this was a homework assignment, you would write them as a complete sentence. The variables in this study are attendance and grades. Okay. I couldn't fit that in there with my fat fingers. Okay. What's the data?
The percentages?
What percentage of
The percentage of attendance.
attendance? Percentage of attendance. What else is the data? The actual grade itself. Is it descriptive, inferential, or both? Are predictions made? Yeah. Like, if you attend class more often, your grades will be higher. Is it also descriptive? Kids who go 80 to 90% usually got a B or C, so it's describing kids who attend 80 to 90% of the time. That's happening now. It's also saying if you do that in the future, this is what you can expect your grade to be. So it is both. What's the population? Who's being studied? Students. In what type of environment? College. What kind of college? Community college. Are we talking about just the students at Manatee Community College, or are we talking about all community college students? Just Manatee. So is that population or sample? It is a sample. So the students at Manatee are the sample. The population are all community college students. From the information, comment on the relationship between the variables. What would you say? You could do one sentence comment there.
The more you go to class, the higher percentage of passing you have.
You were doing so good. The highest percentage in the course, right? Your grade will be higher. The more you go to class, the higher your grade will be. In all likelihood, usually. You want to qualify it, because it's not an absolute. So use some type of descriptor or adverb or adjective, I don't teach English, it's one of those, to sort of qualify your sentence and your claim. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? Are there any questions about any of that? Your homework and notability, you can copy and paste just like we did here, and if you want to do that and put that into your notes, that's fine. Fortunately, since your book is a PDF, that makes it maybe a little bit easier for you. And the problems that you're doing aren't actually in the 1-1 section, they're in the sort of summarized section. Tomorrow, I know we have a short class tomorrow, but we are going to knock out 1-2. And then Thursday, we'll have a 1-1, 1-2 review worksheet, and then Monday we have a quiz. How many of you are involved in freshman retreat? Okay, about half of you. Okay, so make sure that you're kind of planning ahead, using that time wisely, because I know you're going to be busy this weekend. There's nothing on Saturday for freshman retreat, right?
No, it starts at
Yeah, so it ends Friday, so you have Saturday and Sunday like normal. Okay, cool.